Welcome to the Entertainment Rants Podcast, your number one opinion source for all things entertainment. Join host Marco Mazzola as he sounds off on the latest movies, TV, music, gaming, comic books, and more. Now, here's the man of the hour, Marco Mazzola.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Entertainment Rants Podcast. I am your host, Marco Mazzola, and today we are talking about Rewatch TV. And today I have two special guests with me again today. We have Amy.
Hi.
And Sam.
I'm back.
Sam back again. All right, gang. So we're talking about Rewatch TV. TV shows you like to rewatch over and over again. Why we rewatch them. What makes them special. You know, what makes them timeless that you can continue watching even if they're 20, 30 years old. So let's go around and just start off with maybe your, one or two that you like to rewatch. Amy, you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. I have a few, but one of my favorites, and it's 30 or even 40 years old now, but I still love it, is The Golden Girls. I rewatch it all the time.
So that's an 80s show.
It's an 80s show. I love, love, love it. I used to watch it with my roommate in college. Way before that, I used to watch it with my aunt and my grandmother when they would babysit me. I love it. I can, I know all the episodes. I can probably recite them all. There's very few that I won't watch. Yeah, there's very few that I won't watch. I never watched the end one because that makes me too sad. But other than that, I pretty much watch them all. Love it.
You've seen the end one?
I have.
Okay, you just don't rewatch it.
I just don't rewatch it.
All right, so we'll talk about that as well as to like why are there some, episodes you just don't rewatch even though you're going through the whole series over and over again, but you skip certain episodes. Mm-hmm. So what about that one is sad that you? So
I'm not great at watching the last episodes of shows anyways.
Yep.
Like I'll watch them once because it's final, but I don't like the finality of it. Like I like the show. I don't like that it's ending. So, Are
there any that you ever
at Monk watched? I usually watch.
Yeah.
Monk because it's happy.
Right.
They aren't if it's a happy ending,
yeah.
I tend to watch it. If it's not a happy ending or if everybody's leaving, I tend to not watch it.
For you, it's more like you want to continue to picture them living in this universe. So, like with Monk, they continue on to do other things. Like they have other things to do. Like Randy and Sharona go off.
But that bothers me too. Like I know what you're saying. Like they're what they're doing continues.
Yeah.
One of my favorites, of course, is Big Bang Theory. Because at the end of the series, even though, when Sheldon and Amy get the Nobel Prize, they're all back in the apartment. So it's unlike Friends where they kind of all like split up and move away, and Monica and Chandler move to the country, basically, to the suburbs, and so everybody kind of splits and kind of does their own thing. Whereas Big Bang, they're right back in the apartment. You've spent the last 11, 12 seasons, whatever it is, with these people, and they're continuing on. It's not the ending, and their relationships are ending, and they're moving away. So it's a happy ending. They got the Nobel Prize, they won, it's great, and they're just moving on as if life didn't change. That's happening. There's certain shows, like I said, like Friends, they all move away. Two of the ones that make me cry every single time, no matter how many times I watch them. Frasier, every time. I lose it that last episode when he's moving to Seattle, to San Francisco, but then he ends up going to Chicago to get the girl. But at the end of the day, he's supposed to be moving to San Francisco, so he's moving away from the family. His brother just has a baby, and of course, we know my brother passed away 16 years ago. So that obviously hits home for me and it is that final when he's saying his goodbyes to everybody, and he says goodbye to his father. Yeah, that tugs. He says bye to his producer Roz and everything, and Daphne. When he hits Niles, that's it. When him and his brother are separating, he's like, I'll miss the coffees. That's it. I'm done every single time. So that gets me. But I love that series. I will watch Frasier, and I still watch it though. So unlike you, I will watch that finale. It makes me cry every time, and it drives you crazy that I do that because I'm gonna be a blubbering mess at the end of it. But I still watch it.
It's because
it's a great episode.
Yeah, but it's also like self-torture, and I hate it. I hate it when you do that. I
really
hate it when you do that.
Yes, you definitely do. So, so back to Golden Girls. We have B. Arthur, Rue McClanahan, Betty White, Estelle Getty. That's your main cast. Interesting show. Whereas Betty White is still the only one living out of the four, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Estelle Getty was actually like the youngest one.
Not the youngest, but she was only like a year or two. She and B. Arthur were only like a year or two apart. They weren't very far apart.
She also had
age.
A very advanced form of dementia, and it was like pretty aggressive to the point where like she forgot most of her lines. Like,
but they didn't know it then. They didn't know it.
Yeah, exactly.
She was blaming it on stage fright and a whole bunch of other things. They didn't know it while she was filming.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, a great show, though. ahead of its time. I think my only struggle, with that show, if you watch it, and this happens a lot with shows that you rewatch, right? When you start to let's say binge them, you see the threads that happen continuously throughout the show, the sort of shtick, the things that they do. And when you're watching it week to week, or they skip weeks, you're off on hiatus for a summer, you don't necessarily notice it. It doesn't become so apparent. But that show, they're constantly sarcastic with each other, right? It's a show of sarcasm. They're always backbiting each other. It's a bunch of, older women, sort of it's almost that old biddy biting at each other. It's not so drastic until you watch it continuously. And it's just hours on hours of people being sarcastic and biting each other. It's kind of like being home with my family, but maybe that's the problem, but it still is that way,
That doesn't bother me. I think some of the lines are really timeless, and I think at the end of the day, they do truly love and care about each other. Yeah. And that comes through all the time in every episode, and I think that's what the best part of it is. I think in a lot of ways, it did a lot of episodes that were very ahead of its time, like you were saying. They did an episode on AIDS where they were very clear about I can remember at one point Blanche saying to Rose, AIDS is not a bad person's disease, Rose. It just happens to people, and things that in the 80s, these weren't widely held beliefs. I mean, people weren't getting into pool with people who had AIDS because they were afraid they were going to get it.
It started in 85. It ended in 92. It had 177 episodes altogether.
Yeah. That one has always stuck with me, and I think I've rewatched it, and I'm sure it's not completely as it should be, but I still feel like it translates well. Yeah. They have an episode about domestic violence that I think they dealt with very well. They really they dealt with very appropriately. Lots of things about love, about dating, but I liked it that they didn't portray these women as their lives were over. Mm-hmm. They were just kind of hitting their stride.
Right.
In their 50s.
Yes.
And if you think about it, and it's wild too. When you think about it, Rue McClanahan was 51 when she started on that show. J-Lo's 51 right now.
Right.
So, think about how things have changed.
It does, right? The perception of age obviously changes, and as we live longer, right? You were just saying the other day, 70 is no longer old.
That's right.
Right? Before, when we were younger, 70 was, you just got one foot in the banana peel. You know what I mean? One in the grave is that's really old. I hope I live to 70. You know what I mean? And now it's just it's just another day. It's just another age. It's amazing.
It's very it blows my mind.
Right, 50 is the new 40.
50 is the new 30. That's what I've heard people saying. And age truly.
I'm 45 now. I hope so. Mm-hmm. I hope so.
Age is a number. It is. I think, you live your life. But I truly love that show. I think, too, I really like the relationship between Sophia and Dorothy, that they stick by each other, that they're able to do things together, they take care of each other. That was always a big thing for me. I know they're supposed to be Italian. They're not great Italians, but,
they're okay Italian.
Yeah, they could have done it better. It probably would have played better if they were both, I don't know, something else. I don't want to be. But there are definitely pieces that are missed.
Yes.
Might have played better if they were both Jewish.
Okay, I wasn't going to say that, but there you go.
Okay.
Well, you've got Estelle Getty and then you've got Stan.
Yeah,
and so I feel there's more of a cultural understanding there.
Yeah.
I think it would have, I don't know. I think it would have played a little bit differently, but it's good. It's still very, I don't know. I just love it. I really enjoy it. I find it very comforting. And I like the way that they portray many things. And I like it that people's, specifically that, even then it was your life continues. You've lost your husband, you've gotten a divorce, you need to keep living your life. These are some of the best years of your life. Yeah. And whether you have a relationship or not, you have your friends.
And I think it was very forward thinking too, because we're only really starting to get into the whole ageism bias debate, today in 2021. So, the fact that this came out in the 80s and that these women are hitting their stride, that's amazing.
There's an episode at the beginning that sometimes I have a hard time watching, that Rose is looking for a job. She loses her husband's pension.
Yep.
And she's looking for a job and she can't find one. And there's a lot of, they're trying to confront the ageism head on. It's really, it was well done. I thought it was really well done.
I agree. So yeah, there's always going to be those episodes we just don't rewatch, whether it's a season finale because everybody's moving away, or there's just the really uncomfortable episodes that we don't. Right? I have a few that I'll go into when I start talking about mine, but we want to move on?
We can.
All right.
Yeah.
We can circle back. Sam, why don't you give us one of your shows that you rewatch?
So I constantly rewatch Parks and Rec. Now, I constantly rewatch Parks and Rec. Sorry, Marco made me move closer to the mic.
Yes.
But I absolutely love this sort of little idealistic world that Amy Poehler has created in Pawnee, Indiana, and it's actually one of the final season. They do a lot of like flash forwards and flashbacks to sort of figure out like where characters are going and what's happening. And I honestly really like that because it allows me to think that like the story continues. Mm-hmm. And I don't have to just think of them as like gone forever.
Right.
Once it's over. So that's actually one of the final seasons I like the best.
Bye, 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 little Sebastian.
I'm guessing we have hit an inside joke that I know nothing about.
If you've seen one episode of Parks and Rec, you'd understand.
I have not. I don't think I've ever seen a full episode
I know,
of Parks and
you
Rec.
won't watch it with me.
Why?
I know. I don't know what it is. And then, okay, so there's that. There's the shows that just for some reason you just can't get behind watching, right? And it's not that dissimilar than like The Office because it was kind of made on that same vein where it's almost like a mockumentary. They're watching these people at work kind of thing.
It's not a mockumentary.
Do they do any of the talking heads in that show?
No.
They don't ever talk to the camera?
No, they do, but it's not a mockumentary. It's more like, I don't know. It's not a documentary, but they do definitely have times where they talk to the camera.
Right, so there's that breaking the fourth wall, talking on the camera stuff, much like The Office. But The Office was meant to be like a mockumentary. Like they're telling you there's a documentary crew the whole time, and that's why they're being filmed and talking to the camera, whereas Parks and Rec, they are talking to the camera, but they're not even really explaining why they ever get to talk to the camera. Right, so it's almost like there's real life. There isn't a documentary crew there, but yet we're talking to the audience. So that was kind of weird. But yeah, I don't know why. I just never Parks and Rec. I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's not necessarily Amy Poehler. I love what's his name that plays Ron Swanson, right?
Nick
Offerman. Nick Offerman's fantastic. I think he's great. I love him and other stuff that he does. I think that dry humor he has is awesome. Chris Pratt's in that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Chris Pratt was in that. It's kind of where he got his start almost.
Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, some amazing people, and I don't know why I just never got behind it. I've tried, and it's like Modern Family. People love that show. I can't watch it. Like I've literally tried to sit down and watch it.
I think one of the other things about Park and Rec where they break the fourth wall is it came out around the same time where they were doing that a lot in 30 Rock too. Mm-hmm. I think in a lot of NBC comedies of the day were like, that's
I think
what
The Office kind of
started it, and then everyone just sort of like, that's what you did if you were
because
doing
The Office
comedy.
took off. It was a huge hit. It was a huge, get. So they're like, let's do that too. And I don't know that it ever worked as well. For me, it just didn't work as well as The Office. But I know there's a huge show, so I'm not trying to say they're not good shows. You shouldn't watch them.
Yeah.
I think they're definitely for people.
I loved Parks and Rec.
Yeah, The Office doesn't have enough color in it for me to watch it. Like, I need the episodes to have like, it's something about being in the office and it being all like all white. I can't do it.
The tan walls, right? The beige everywhere.
Visually, I can listen to it. I love listening to The Office, but I can't physically force myself to watch it. Like, it's the tan walls. It's the lack of color on set. I could watch that, and I've
seen it 100. I can't remember how many times. I literally have lost count how many times I've watched that series from beginning to end. There are, of course, some episodes that I will skip. The Scott's Tots episode is one of the most cringy episodes when he's
really
supposed to, send all these kids to college because he thought he was going to be rich, and he ends up giving them all like laptop batteries. Not even laptops to go to college. He gives them batteries. That's the only thing he can afford to give these kids. It was. I just can't. I just some reason I can't watch those episodes. I don't know why.
Because it's really bad. I mean, it's really. I don't watch that one either.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, there are some. That's the main one with The Office that I don't rewatch because you definitely rewatch it a whole bunch. But
I do. And the final episode gets me every time. That's another one like Frasier. I get on the
Waterworks start going.
The Waterworks, as soon as Michael shows back up during Dwight's wedding, and because he doesn't know he's going to be there. It obviously plays to the fact that my brother, and who doesn't wish if you have a dead sibling or relation, friend that you want them to show up one day, and they're never going to, so it hits you. And he's gone from the series for 2 or 3 seasons at that point, and all of a sudden he just and there wasn't any word. He wasn't supposed to. Like there was all that he's not going to show up. He didn't want to, all that buzz. He didn't want to because he didn't want to take away from everything they had done without him.
Yep.
Right. They were going to continue. The show had lived a life. And it was 3 seasons, I think, after he left the show. And they were worried, is the show going to go on without Steve Carell? And it did. As well, that's debatable. But it did do well for at least 3 more seasons. So, he wanted it to live itself without him. But then he ended up showing up. He just makes a surprise appearance. And that was, for me, that was the big. I lose it every time.
I have a really hard time with shows that all have the same color. Like, I can't watch shows that are all one color. I just can't do it. Like I need there to be more color. I think that's why I like Parks and Rec better, because there's actual color.
Yeah, you mean the sets and the things going on. Yeah.
What other show is all one color? What are you even talking about?
And the debate
Some
has started.
seasons of Game of Thrones, all one color.
I've been rewatching that show. It's a lot of one color.
All one
It's a lot
color.
of blue and gray.
It depends on the season, but like it's all blue and gray, and I can't do it. And
Sure, when you're in like Westeros and you're in in those places, there's a lot.
and that's
of
how you know where you are
one
because of
color.
what color it
Sure.
is.
And that's done on purpose,
I mean, it's
but
done
yeah.
on purpose, but I just visually I can't do it.
Yeah.
Okay, well then.
You're giving it. I think you're out of your mind face. I know the sisters. This is how they roll. That's okay. Everybody has their opinion, right?
One color.
One color. That's Sam's new nickname. Look for her on Instagram. One color. All right, fantastic. All right. So mine was one of my major ones is The Office, as we were talking about. I lived in that office life for 16 years. I worked for a company, and with the cubicle farm and everything like that. And it's actually where I started watching that show. I started watching the show because Apple came out with the iPod 5, I think, for the video iPod, and it bundled some of the episodes with it.
And the world comes full circle, and Marco's life becomes meta.
Pretty much.
He's watching The
That's
Office.
What I did. I watched
in
The
an
Office at the office. Not always at the office. Some places other than that we don't have to talk about on the podcast. But it was just like something to do. I had my iPod and my headphones, and I needed my quiet time, so I'd watch The Office. And that's what I would do. And that's how I got to know that show, was from the iPod that I got, the iPod. I think it was the 5 with the video.
I had never
was genius.
watched that show till we started dating.
Really? Wow. See? It's unbelievable. So you something you can live and breathe and love, and you get with somebody else like, no, I've never seen it. Now, you and I do that all the time. Mm-hmm. We talked about that before on the last episode, on the movie one, on the guilty pleasure ones. There's movies and TV shows you've never seen before, and I grew up watching. Right, same thing. And that
More
happens.
movies though than TV shows.
Yeah, and that can happen obviously because you can't watch everything.
No.
And you like the things you
can
like.
try.
And you can try. I mean, I'm certainly giving it a try. We know that.
You tried. You
Real
so
hard.
tried. Real hard.
And then I gave up.
You didn't give up. Mom made you give up.
That's fantastic. So The Office for me, I identified with a lot of the characters. I loved Michael Scott as much as he is super cringy and super uncomfortable. They hit their stride really in the second season. The first season was kind of weird, where they were really trying to be the same as the British one. So much of it was so similar, but I love the fact that they changed the formula up a bit. If you ever listen to the Office Ladies podcast, I love it. I'm getting through that one. I think we're on season 3. If you get a chance, not a paid sponsor, but definitely go listen to the Office Ladies podcast. I love that one. That's one of my favorites.
It is good. I mean, I feel like I haven't watched The Office enough to truly appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, I think there's a Golden Girls podcast called Out on the Lanai. Also not a paid sponsor, but I have an easier time with that one because I've seen it so many times.
Right.
That it just it's because they're rewatching the shows and talking about what was going
Right.
on behind the scenes. And so I think that if you want to watch that and you haven't watched a ton of The Office, I would recommend queuing up the episode while you're listening, so it will make more sense to you.
Right. So do they do as it's going?
Yeah.
Are they watching it on the podcast while they're doing it?
It sounds like they are because at
Okay.
different times they say at 10:27 then this happens.
Well, they do that on The Office Ladies too, but they watched it.
No,
and
that's
then
I
they
was
just
talking about on The
timestamped
Office
it.
Ladies.
Right.
Not,
Yeah.
I don't know. You know
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
Honestly,
they
I don't know.
pre-watched
I don't know if they're doing it on Out on the Lanai because there's just so many references that I get.
Right.
I mean, it's very. So I couldn't tell you. But
Yeah, it's a great podcast to listen to. I love the Office Ladies because, again, I watched every single episode so many times. I know exactly what they're talking about. So now there's the extended, the Superfan episodes on Peacock. Have you seen that? Peacock Streaming has Superfan. They've only done the first 3 seasons. They're probably going to go through all of them eventually. But they're extending each episode. So they're giving a lot of the deleted scenes. They're weaving them back in. The sad part, and you've seen me do this, is we can watch it and go, that's new. That scene's new. I know exactly which scenes they've added and which ones are the original version of the show. All right, this is right from here. That's all new. Right to that part, that's new. It's sad. I know I haven't missed a one yet. I know exactly which scenes are new because I've watched it so many times. All right, Amy, give me another one.
Psych, which probably most people here have not seen, but I love
Well,
Psych.
Julia Hill's great in Psych.
Yep.
Well,
And
so
he's
isn't.
Yeah.
So isn't. Oh my God, why can't I think of his name?
Poof, and it vanished.
James Rhodey.
Oh, James Rhodey, thank you. Who plays Sean? Oh my God, James Rhodey, I think is how you say it.
I think that's right.
I think it's James Rhodey. But it is. I love them. I mean, they're like they're best friends. They're like buddy. It's like a buddy cop show. They own a detective, a psychic detective agency. James Roday's character Sean pretends he's psychic, and Gus has been his best friend forever. It's Dule Hill. They solve these crimes together, and they do it. And eventually, towards the end, it kind of catches up with them. But it's a really good show. It's funny. There's a lot of jokes. There's lots of things. Sean's father gets involved. I mean, there are these police detectives that they regularly interact with. It's hysterical. Yeah. It's hysterical. And even though I know what's going to happen and I know who's done the crimes, I can still rewatch it. I enjoy it. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it.
So that show is. So there's different types of like detective shows. There's some detective shows where you don't know who did it, and you have to follow along with the detective, let's say, to figure out who did it and how they figured it out. But then there's other ones where you see very well who did it, and so you know the mystery, and you're just watching the detective figure out how they do it. Which one do you prefer?
So I don't.
It depends.
Yeah, it does depend. Like, cause I'll watch Columbo too, right?
Yeah, yeah, you've been watching that recently.
Yeah, and at the beginning, like you see who does the crime,
right?
And you watch him trying to piece it together.
That's just the magic of watching him, quote unquote, fumble, but not really fumble.
Yeah,
his way.
Do a shtick.
Do a shtick to get it together. Fumble, yeah.
I've always really liked a mystery. I like the puzzle, so I enjoy watching it like play out. I also enjoy as I know a show and I know what they do, seeing if I can get it. Or seeing if I know where it's going to go before.
Because Monk is one of those shows. You know who did it. And
Oftentimes,
most of the time, you know who did it. You just have to watch him figure how he figures it out, because that's more what it's about.
Well, and then another show that Amy and I both really like to watch, Midsomer Murders. And that show, you more have to watch and figure it out along as they go, because you don't know who did it.
They don't show you up. They don't bury the lead. They bury the lead.
Do you know what Marco calls that show?
Oh.
Who Killed Nigel?
That's exactly what that show is. It's because that's every time it's Who Killed Nigel. Or Nigella, it just depends. It's either Nigel or
and we're always flirting with like these pseudo serial killers, because the episodes are so long that you have like 3 or 4 murders before they finally catch the guy.
Your mother watches that show, doesn't she?
My parents love it.
Yeah.
My parents love it.
They love it.
Who's watching Who Killed Nigel?
Yeah. My parents love that one. They watch it all the time. I haven't watched it as much recently, but I go back and forth because I've seen a lot of these things. But Psych is definitely great rewatch TV for me. I love it. There are certain episodes that I will watch every time. You like to see the threads too,
of trying to find the pineapple. The pineapple that somehow shows up in some variation, whether it's on a shirt or a little pineapple upside down cake, or some sort of a pineapple shows up in every single episode.
If you look on the 100th episode, the Clue episode, which is one of my favorites. The pineapple's the doorbell. Yep. Like the doorbell's pineapple shaped. It's they fit it in a million different places. It's really, really well done.
121 episodes to fit in pineapple. It's pretty good.
So it's kind of like when you watch I love watching and rewatching Disney films, like the old animated ones, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's Finding Nemo's fish tank. Mm-hmm. And you you have to thread things in. They thread things in, like the Where's Waldo moments.
Yeah, they have the pizza truck now. They have the door, which is like, I forget the number. It's like A114 or 3 or something like that.
Oh, Booze Door.
Booze Door.
Yeah, there's a number on it. Do you know what that number stands for?
No.
So in Pixar, that was the animator's room.
Yep.
That was the number for the animator's room.
Oh, cool.
As they always had a number above the door. That was their room. So in every movie, they put that number in there somehow. Yeah, so it's a little Easter egg you get to find. I love watching the Easter eggs. Whether it's TV shows or movies, they're fantastic. So one of my favorites, so back to Frasier, one of my favorite threads throughout the whole series was Niles and his support groups. And it's kind of hard, you don't initially, but when you watch them back to back again, he's always has his support groups, and he's always telling why he has to leave. I have to leave. I have my fear of abandonment support group. I can't not show. I've been a no-show 3 times. I have to go this time. You know what I mean? So there's always some sort of reference back to and a little play on words as to why he has to go to a support group, because it delves into what that support group is. That's fun. It's not in every single episode, but when you watch them back to back, you can pick up on them. That's fun for me.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
That is a good one. So, Sam, give me your next one.
Neither. I don't know. Amy might like this one, but The West Wing. I constantly rewatch The West Wing all the time. I love The West Wing.
That was in unison. Fantastic.
It's because we share a brain.
Dule Hill's also on The West Wing.
Right.
Well, exactly, because that's how I got introduced to Dule Hill. And, I love The West Wing. I love rewatching
What about The West Wing do you love?
First of all, John Spencer. I love his character and how he supports Martin Sheen and their friendship throughout the entire thing. Allison B. Janney, oh my God, she's amazing. Mm-hmm. absolutely effing amazing.
Yeah, she is.
And I love her story arc. I love her character's arc throughout the entire story. It's great. But yeah, I love rewatching that.
Yeah, I don't think I've watched the entire series, beginning to end. I don't know that I've rewatched the entire series.
You have to also frame it that it starts like, it's like what, 20 years old now?
Yeah,
From 99 to 2006,
Yeah, so it's basically like Hollywood's liberal love letter to like what a Democratic president would have been.
Right, it lasted
Throughout,
as long as the presidency.
It lasted as long as George H.W. Bush's presidency.
Right, and that's the whole show, because then it turns into Jimmy Smits becomes the new president.
Yeah.
He changes over at the end, right? Which, weirdly enough, threw me when I watched it, but then, like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, but it's just a president. It's 8 years. He did two terms, and that's it.
2 terms,
you can't keep going on with this. It takes place over the course of 8 years during his presidency. So, yes, he has to move out of the Oval Office, and somebody else has to go in there. Then I was like, my brain, it took me an extra second to think of that.
For your brain to catch up?
Yeah, to catch up to it. Like, because you just want the show to continue, like you were talking about. Yep. I just want the show to go on, but I can't. He has to, you know what I mean? It'd be weird if they just did, okay, now we're going to do 8 more seasons with Jimmy Smits.
Yeah, and you'd have to have a different staff, right? Because the staff all changes.
The whole staff
Everybody
would change out. It'd be a completely different show.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That just didn't make any sense. You know what I mean?
It's not. So it was, I mean, I agree. I think it's well done. I think I like the way that they, what they show, what they don't show. I think it's a really idealized political view, but you know, who doesn't like idealized things? That's why we watch TV.
Yep.
Exactly.
You know, we're not watching the news. We're watching drama here. So I think that, and
comedy,
or comedy.
Well, and you want to buy in, and in a perfect world, like, yeah, this is how I want this to play out. Like, I want it to be exactly what I want.
Yeah. And, you and I grew up in a family where there was a lot of emphasis placed on history and politics and current events and knowing what's happening in the world. And
how do you form an argument? How do you back up your argument?
Which doesn't matter whether you agree with us or not, but if you're going to have an argument,
you better argue well.
Yeah, and you better have reasons for it, not just because I said so.
Yeah. So
that plays right into, our wheelhouse.
Well, yes, because if someone says because I say so, you and I immediately like to go, well, no. Who said you get to say?
Yeah.
So one of the actresses on the show is Elizabeth Moss.
I didn't know that.
She plays his daughter. She plays Zoe Bartlett.
Does she really?
Yes, she's the daughter. She's the president's daughter.
She gets kidnapped.
Yes, that's right. She gets in the kidnapping. So she, obviously being on Mad Men, she leads into the Mad Men, which is another show. There's a little segue that you like that. A little segue into Mad Men, another show that I'll rewatch over and over and over and over again. So most of the shows that I rewatch are comedies, mostly because they're short. Right, it's a short 22 minutes. Boom, you're done. You can digest it very easily while you're doing other stuff. You're just rewatching. Whereas shows like Mad Men or the longer serial type shows, you got to kind of pay attention. Right, it's not just a one-off. This one show leads into the next, and the storyline continues. But when you've seen it, I don't know how many times we watched Mad Men. I've lost count. How many times we watched that show?
I've only seen it once the whole way through.
Really?
Yeah.
I've definitely seen it more than 5 times. Easy.
No, yeah. I mean, I've seen different parts of it, but the whole way, consistently watched it the whole way through just once. Because you have it on when you're doing other stuff, and
yes.
I have a very hard time with that. Like, I have to be able to concentrate.
Right.
It distracts me too much to have it on in the background. So
my favorite is when you go to bed watching a show and you fall asleep. So I'm set up watching it. And I'll watch 2-3 episodes, but then But then she falls asleep, and then the next day she's got to watch those episodes that she's missed. I've already watched them. This ends up happening for 4 to 5 nights in a row. She watches the same. I end up watching the same 5 episodes.
She usually falls asleep at the same point in every episode too.
Yes, she does.
Same
the problem
place.
is I go to change it. No, I'm watching that. I was watching that. Like, no, you're not. It's watching you, and I'm watching it for the 5th time this week. I need to move. I know the struggle.
It's so hard.
It is.
The struggle is real.
You think it's easy?
I don't.
Thank God for headphones. My headphones don't watch something on my phone while the show watches the back of your head.
That's okay.
Nice.
You'll live.
Mad Men. Have you seen the whole thing, Sam?
I haven't watched Mad Men.
You've never watched Mad Men?
You'd probably really like it.
I think you'd like Mad Men. What a great show. I mean, just stylized.
It was AMC, right?
It was an AMC show. It was on around the same time as Breaking Bad.
More than one color.
Lots of color.
Tons of colors.
This is a colorful show like you read about. I mean, it's amazing the amount of color. It's advertising, so it's all the ads, and the visuals on the show are incredible. It's the 50s, but they travel a little bit from 50s to 60s. and they take it through a little
But
time.
it's those bright colors, that fashion.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Between the ad stuff, fashion, everything else, what a wonderful show. I just can't say enough. I love, John Hamm's character. He's goes through so many different changes throughout the series. He starts off as what you think he's one guy, and he's completely different by the end of the series. His wife Betty, or then turns out to be his ex-wife. The arcs.
January Jones?
Yeah, it's January Jones. That's right. So it just the arcs on all the characters. There's so many characters, obviously, throughout the entire show, and like everybody has a wonderful arc. Like they really start off as one person, end up with somebody different, and I don't really know that they. And you could correct me because you've seen it too. But do they have somebody who they just kind of drop, but don't really give them a finish to their story arc? You know what I mean? Like it's just like everybody seems to really have some kind, whether you know how they started, but you know how they finish.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, everybody has an end. I don't know if it's always a satisfying end.
Right.
Like Sal, right?
Yes.
Like
it's an end. You know how it ends. It's definitely not satisfying. It's
an
aggravating end, but it's not just a character that you saw, got to love, and then like they just don't deal with it.
Well, no, but
like, they deal with him getting off the show in a very profound way.
Yeah,
it's not a great way, but it's a very profound way.
No, I mean it just feels terrible.
Yeah,
I mean it just feels really terrible.
Yeah, it's definitely not a touchy-feely nice way to do it, but it was dramatic. It was something that's like, okay, we understand why he's no longer on the show. I don't think there's any. Like I said, I don't think there's many characters, if any, that just sort of disappear for no reason.
No, I think they explain it all pretty well.
What's his name? The younger guy who was like just started going a little loony and eventually like cut off his nipple to give to her, like because the aliens, he needed to free the aliens out of his brain.
I can't think of his name, but he has a psychotic break.
Yeah, he has a psychotic break. So again, it's a way they released him from the show, but you know why.
Yeah, I mean it's not a great one.
It's not a great ending, but you know the ending, but you know why he's gone.
No. It is. You do know why he's gone.
Yeah.
And it's hard. And I think like the situation with Sal, I mean, basically they let him go because it's discovered he's gay and he's living in the closet. He's married, and in the 50s. In the 50s. And so
one of their major advertiser, their major cigarette advertiser, one of the guy who basically he's like the son or whatever, the guy that runs the whole cigarette company, is also finds out he's gay and he comes on to him. Sal's the head of the advertising of the art department.
Yeah.
Side of the art department.
Sal doesn't.
And Sal's like, no, but he's still not trying to come out. He's not out of the closet yet.
Yeah.
He's pretending he has a wife, right? Like he legitimately,
he's
legitimately has a wife, whatever like that. But so then, he goes up against it, and then of course the cigarette guy wants him gone because now it's an embarrassment that he basically shot him down, and nobody knows, and he doesn't want everybody else to know that he's gay. So he's like, make this guy go away, or I drop my account with you, and they lose the millions of dollars because it's their largest account. So they basically kick him out. Mm-hmm. He gets him fired essentially. So
yeah, it's really
the Jared Harris when he commits suicide, that was really tough.
Oh, Lane.
Yeah, Lane, played by Jared Harris. Yeah, that was tough. Not to spoil it, but I just did for you.
Party.
There you go.
It was. Yeah. I mean, there was just too many. There were too many lies there.
Yeah.
For him. I mean, I think his character had just tried to cover up and cover up and cover up. Yeah. And he couldn't.
And he got caught.
But
I feel like, he could have gotten through it. You know what I mean? Like they would have, they cared about him enough to deal with it appropriately.
Yeah, they would have figured it out.
They would have figured it out. He didn't need to do what he needed to do.
No, he didn't. No,
Bert Cooper, that was rough. I think that we lost Bert.
Oh, he just passed away though.
Yeah.
He was old.
But he was old. So but he was the backbone. He was the father. He was the father figure. You know what I mean? The wise old one, the Yoda of the group, basically, who they always went to.
But there wouldn't have been the major, like, with Cooper still around, there wouldn't have been the changes that there were at the end, which, was kind of good and bad.
Yeah, exactly, to make it move forward. So, all right, so that's Mad Men. Definitely a show I'll rewatch, and I'm sure I'll rewatch it again. What are you talked about, what are you watching currently? What's the one you were currently watching?
What am I watching currently?
You were doing Monk.
I was doing Monk. What was it? I've been watching a lot of documentaries, so I've gone back and done some documentaries recently.
Yes.
So
we'll have to do an entire episode on murder shows and cult shows just for you.
That would be awesome.
She loves her murder shows and cult shows.
Happy.
I don't understand it. I understand why. I understand, but I don't understand why people watch those shows.
Again, too much of the same color makes me want to fall asleep.
Yeah, red. But
It's not a lot of red. I'm watching right now. What I'm watching right now is I had listened to a podcast about it, and now there's also a documentary on it, so I'm watching that. But I was watching Monk before.
Yeah,
I was back on Monk.
You will have to get into the murder show culture at some point on it. I don't understand.
What about The Nanny?
Oh, love
you
the
used
nanny.
to watch The Nanny.
Still do. It's still on.
The Nanny Named Fran.
That's
Yes,
right.
The Nanny Named
We
Fran.
still rewatch The Nanny. It's still on. Yeah.
We were
I
rewatching
think
it.
HBO Max has it streaming now.
Yeah,
so you
we
gotta-
were rewatching it earlier. I made it up to like season 4. There's a point where she and like Fran and Maxwell not getting together. It gets really drawn out for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And I just like there is.
They did make that go on
It's
for a
just
while.
like, get me to the end.
Yeah,
Get me to them hooking up. Get me to the wedding.
I was getting exhausted with it. Like
Yeah.
even rewatching it, I was getting exhausted with it. And there was an episode with Roseanne Barr who I just don't. I've never really liked her. Like I never really watched Roseanne. I never really anything that's happened recently has been like icing on the cake for me. I just never liked her previously.
Right.
So even that was enough to make me be like, nah, I'm not watching that.
I remember seeing her in her stand-up routine with her very first stand-up special. I was, again, way too young to be watching it, and she's pretty crass. She's, you know what I mean? She's very crass, you know, when she talks like that.
She's no Eddie Murphy though.
She's no Eddie Murphy, definitely not. No, she had more of the physical, you know, grabbing her crotch and spitting and things like that, you know, making fun. Where
thank
Eddie
you.
Murphy was just like, you know, swears profanity across the board. So it was a
got
different
my
type
eyes
of it was a different type of
I got my
vulgarity
eyes
watching her than Eddie Murphy. But I agree. When you get to Fran, Fran, it's the same. It draws out too much for me. It definitely drew. I am watching The Lois and Clark Adventures of Superman with Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher, and it's the same thing. It's only 4 seasons, but there's that whole point in, I think it's the second or third season, where they're getting together, and they got together, and now they're going to get married, and it just takes like an entire season because they get married, but it wasn't really her. It was a clone of her.
Oh
He
my
thinks
God.
she got kidnapped. Lex is back. Da 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 da. So then then she gets amnesia, and he comes back, and he gets.
Okay,
and
so
then they have to
that
get through the
bothers
amnesia
me
portion
almost-
of it. Every time they get to the way, then it comes. There's an episode with what's her name from Designing Women, Delta Burke. She's like basically the wedding crasher. She's trying to ruin their wedding because Lois put her in, and basically got her put in jail with her news articles about her. So she gets out of jail, and the guy what's the guy who did Roger Rabbit? He's the voice of Roger Rabbit. He's in there. He's like a psychiatrist who's working with her because he was her psychiatrist, and they end up crashing the wedding again. Like these two can never get to the altar. It was interminable. Like just get to the damn wedding.
So
and
that bothers me almost as much as, oh, we're going to have all this terrible stuff happen, and then you're going to realize it's a character's dream. They've been in a car accident.
easy out.
And it's
Yes.
terrible.
Yes, what is that? Is that
I
the
can't.
Dallas.
That's Dallas.
That's the Dallas. That's the Dallas
Oh my
out.
God.
Yes.
JR, it was just a dream. He
The
didn't
whole-
really
the
get
dream
shot.
thing, yeah.
Who shot
shot
JR?
JR?
No one.
No one.
No one actually, because
No
it was a
one.
dream.
And Patrick Duffy ends up in the shower. You
Oh.
see Patrick Duffy in the shower.
Yeah.
Yes.
When they freaking tried to recreate Dallas on TNT, ugh, no thank you.
Okay, but we're talking about rewatch.
No, but let's
TV.
talk about that for a second because that's interesting because that's happened. We do the reboots and
They do the reboot, and then
reboots,
it's-
and maybe it's a show you do watch all the time, like a 90210, and people rewatch that show because they love it, and all of a sudden they do the new version,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it just pales in comparison. It just but we talked about that too. Like it doesn't necessarily because I've been on the web and listened to people bitch and moan about the new Masters of the Universe show by Kevin Smith, and people are just ripping it apart. It's ruined my childhood, which I've talked before is one of the stupidest statements you can ever utter across your face because it's ruined nothing. You just don't like this version, but you can just go back and watch
Well,
the
also
version you did like. It's still
You're
around.
making
It's
a
still there.
choice to allow it to ruin it. Like,
So if you don't like it,
ridiculous.
then don't keep
Don't watch
watching.
it.
They don't watch it.
No
That's
one's
fine.
forcing you.
But I understand the fact that they this new version, which is tied into the old version, you want it to be in your brain the same as the old version. It's not the same. It's 30 years later with different people doing it, but it is very similar to the old version. Like they really tried to hold faithful to it. It's not going to be exactly the same.
But you're also 30 years older
That's
watching
right.
it without childlike innocence.
That's right. You're
and
watching
acceptance.
it from 30-year-older eyes.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
experiences.
that like just graciousness that kids have with a lot of things,
Sure.
right? Like and forgiveness. I don't know exactly what to call it, but like
it's the suspension
you know what I mean?
of disbelief.
Thank you. That's a better
Absolutely.
way to say it.
Yeah.
Like just the absolute suspension of disbelief. And I think some things like that, like I would never watch a remake of the Golden Girls. I'm in all these Golden Girls groups on Facebook, and everybody's always talking about a remake, and maybe it would be good, but I just feel like there are certain things. Why do we need to remake them? Like I'm not a fan of remaking the Disney movies live. I like the animated classics as they are.
Yeah, but you can go watch them.
I might, but I've chosen not to.
You can go back and watch the animated versions.
Yeah.
They're still there to watch if you want to watch them.
Yeah.
But it is just that people love the new ones because you have to remake them to some degree, right? They've made new Star Wars because there's young kids who want to watch it and love Star Wars the way we watched it when we were young kids and fell in love with Star Wars. So it's almost like it's really not for us, even though it's for the fans who've been watching it for 40 years or whatever. You're going to watch new versions, but the kids love it. There are kids who only know the prequels. Now there are kids who only know the sequel trilogy, and that's their Star Wars. Rey is their Jedi. You know what I mean? And to us, it's ugh.
Which is kind of
no.
There's
not Rey, but the way they made the new movies.
That they only know like a female as the main character.
Yeah, no, that's not the problem. It's
I know, but like I'm just
she
saying,
did a great job, but the movies themselves weren't, in my eyes, weren't as good as the originals. Well, of course they weren't, because I was a kid when I watched the originals.
I think these were certainly like if we Star Wars is a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But I think if we were going to go off on that road,
Star Wars is a whole other series of podcasts. Let's be honest.
The original 3, right, 4, 5, 6, were great. I am not a fan of 1, 2, 3.
No.
And then I like 7, 8, 9, and Rogue One. I do.
Yes, I definitely
those.
like them better than 1, 2, and 3,
Yeah,
and that's mostly because Lucas didn't do them.
I've never even seen 2 and 3. I've only seen 1. I've never even seen 2 and 3 because I just couldn't.
It's one of those things where like it's a couple hours. You watch it because you have the whole story together, but you don't have to rewatch it. Like, what's the harm in just watching them to know how the story goes?
I know what happens. 2, the Clone Wars, I probably will never, ever, ever watch. You might get me to watch Revenge of the Sith just because I really like Star Wars. But but anyways, we're like way off topic here.
That's all right, but it goes back to the same thing that you were saying with rewatching or watching TV shows that they reboot or remake. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just not a need. I can go watch the original Golden Girls. I don't need to watch a new version of it. Mm-hmm. But I understand why they do it. It's introducing a show to kids or people, now with current actors and actresses and current situations, right? Doing it for today, for 20. What are the situations you were saying? You have domestic abuse, and obviously that's still a relevant thing. AIDS, it's still relevant, but it's not in the forefront of everything in the news. How often do you hear about?
I think
obviously right now with the pandemic, we have a lot more that's on the forefront. But even before that,
sure. But you're in a very different space. Like there's drugs that allow you to live 30, 40, 50 years.
Right.
And that immunosuppress the virus. So
right. So a new version of Golden Girls might hit a different topic.
Then it was a death sentence.
Yeah.
And you were gonna maybe you had 10 years.
Right.
Post diagnosis. Right. So and they didn't. We knew where it was coming from, but not totally. Yeah. And there was a lot of unknown.
Right. Obviously, it's a very serious thing. We're always trying to downplay the disease.
Not even close.
But the point is now there are other things that would be talked about that are more on the forefront of what we're dealing with right now.
Exactly.
And I think
at
some point there'll be the pandemic show.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're putting that together, right? What happens during the pandemic and what happens to the world.
And I think that there are things that
TV.
Exactly. There are things that are that are timeless like that are still things for people to deal with and not that, but
But I wanted to talk about that too. The timelessness of some shows, and some shows that are you rewatch them, but they're not exactly timeless. And the biggest thing that bumps for me is technology, because technology moves so fast. Mm-hmm. And you watch a show like early Frasier or Friends, or heaven forbid you go back to watch A Three's Company, which I've watched. I can't even tell you how many times I've watched the entire series. We used to watch it at dinner time every night. Be quiet, Amy. I know that hurts your head and your heart.
The news should be on during dinner.
There
folks.
You go.
That's
not
the
Jack
only
Tripper
thing that should be on during dinner.
Pretending to be gay just so you can live in an apartment. A horrifically not woke show whatsoever. However, let's just talk about the technology, and that makes it not timeless, because you look at it from now, it's like 90% of this crap wouldn't happen if somebody just made a phone call. If I just text you or made
if
it
you
sound,
had a
it's
cell
just text. I can tweet you, I can Instagram, I can do anything I want. If I have a cell phone, I can just text you, and then that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
The old missing, the whole mistaken identities and all, it wouldn't happen nowadays. So you watch these shows like, wow. How did that work? I don't get it. Especially now if you're a kid.
I love
watching,
mistaken
identities.
identities.
This makes no sense to me.
There's no mistaken identities. You just go online, you Google search them.
That's right.
And then you
look
do
at
some
Facebook
good old
page,
fashioned
like,
Facebook stalking.
Yeah.
Right.
Or there's a whole episode of Friends where Friends is another one I rewatch quite a bit. But there's a whole episode of Friends where Monica's leaving these voicemails. She's checking Richard's answering machine.
That's right. And she deletes
a message or something. And it's this isn't a thing.
How many people really nowadays, especially at that age, at their age that they are, have answer machines at home. Some people still do.
Yeah.
Some people still do, but most people have their cell phones, and that's your voicemail. We don't have a home phone.
We don't have a home phone. No,
we have our cell phones, so we don't need a home phone.
There are lots of things. There are lots of things that are dated, right?
Yeah.
There are lots of things in any of these shows that are very dated. But I also think, like you were saying about the, just the ways that some societal things are portrayed, right? Like I think The Golden Girls has an episode where Blanche's brother is gay. Yeah. And the way that they talk about it now, the way that they talk about it then was progressive for the 80s for sure.
Right.
And now you're kind of like, ugh.
Oh, did you?
Even though they were trying to be,
they were
accepting and trying to put it into the forefront and light and put the light on it.
So there's a line in it which I think still is super timeless, where Sophia's talking to Blanche is saying to Sophia, like, I don't understand. Her brother's name is Clayton, and he wants to marry Doug, his boyfriend, and she's saying, why? I don't understand why they have to like slip a ring on it. And Sophia says to her, well, why did you get married? She said, because we loved each other and we wanted to make a lifetime commitment and we wanted everybody to know. And she said, well, why are they any different?
Right.
And that, there are moments like that, but the way things are portrayed and the jokes and things that are okay to joke about.
That is, and this is, because coming from an Italian family, the interesting part about the oldest one who would be the most anti, because the way you grow up and how you grow up in that time period is the one who's giving the sage advice to being like, why aren't you accepting of this?
Yeah.
She's the most progressive, but you would think, like in my family, not the most progressive people.
Well, I think
because
that
they grew up in a time in a space that was not.
When you have a character like Sophia, she's more of a Yoda.
Yes.
She's not the head of the family. She's not the authoritarian. She's the Yoda. She is the wise one. She is the wisdom giver. She's the well, we don't have a lot of time left, so why are you worrying about this kind of thing? Picture it, Sicily, 1933. Go back to my day. This is what I had to deal with. Kind of wisdom. She's not that crackdown authoritarian.
Yeah. And it was, but you can definitely, through any of that kind of stuff, that we are now more aware of how we should be saying things or not saying things, even though they deal with things and can deal with it. They have these moments that are like, okay, that's great. Some of the jokes and some of the things you're still like, okay. I see, and I can see how, you know that was okay then, or that was pushing up against things then, but it just isn't.
That's the All in the Family for me. That's the All in the Family moment. That whole show was about that.
Yeah.
It was about, even though it was a comedy.
I'm sorry, what?
All in the Family with Archie Bunker.
I got no idea what you're talking about.
Holy smokes.
Oh, that's sad for you.
That is very sad for you. It is one of the most famous shows for that reason, because it did nothing but point out how ridiculous this very entitled white man was in his theories of everything from race to sexuality, everything. So however, it shined a light on how ridiculous. He's made him the fool by pointing out, but it was very controversial at the time, because half of the people will be like, that you're joking about it and you're making fun of it
when it's a real problem.
But the reality is, he was really making fun of him and his beliefs. So it depends on how you look at it. You can look at it as you're insulting us because you're making light of this hard situation that we go through, or you can look at it like, no, we're pointing out how ridiculous somebody who feels his way is. Look how ridiculous he sounds. He sounds so Neanderthal, and stupid and uneducated.
Tying it back to the Golden Girls, B. Arthur played Maude on that show. Edith Bunker's cousin, who then that really gave her own spin-off show. Maude, which also did a lot of very progressive things. Maude had an abortion on that show before abortion was legal, and that was all B. Arthur.
That's a big deal.
It was huge. Yeah. There was a lot of very progressive things that they did on that show. That I've seen a couple episodes. I haven't seen tons of them, and there are some things that you can tell it was made in the 70s. It's very the late 60s, early 70s. It's very stereotyped about women's roles and things, but that in and of itself is a huge deal, and that's that was her entirely. She wanted that. She wanted to take a stand on that, and it was a big deal, network wise, controversy wise. People were saying her career was going to end. It didn't, but that was a big
no, not at all.
And she but she comes in as Maude, as the foil to Archie Bunker. In certain
I love their rows. I love their battles. And she put him in his place too sweet. It was funny.
They're all sick. They all have the flu. And Edith's cousin Maude has to come over to take care of them. And she just cuts him down to size
she stops
several
him in
times.
every one of his stupid rants about whatever.
Yeah, it's really, it's nice to see. It's also the interplay, it's nice to see a woman doing that. In the way that, and George Jefferson used to do that to him too. Yep. The Jeffersons were on there, and George Jefferson used to blow him out of the water too.
Yeah, it was a spin-off.
It was very, the Jeffersons came off of All in the Family too as well.
Yeah, it was a bunch of spin-offs. That show had a ton of spin-offs.
Yeah.
And then obviously once the quote-unquote the Edith character passed away, then they had Andre Bunker's place, and he had the girl, the Stephanie, I think her name was. Remember her?
No.
The young dark-haired girl. I'll show you after. I forget her name, but she grew up to do other stuff too. She was on there. They had adopted her, and then Edith passed away, and he had her like when they owned the bar, and she was always at the bar. Young kid, was always at the bar with him. That was a whole other show.
Because that works.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Edith died.
Yeah, they killed off her character, and then he was on his own, and it became Archie Bunker's place.
So he just they
He
ended
bought the bar that he used to go to all the time. He ended up buying it and turning it into Archie Bunker's place.
What happened to Gloria and Meathead?
They moved away. They had Joey, the baby, and they moved away. So I think they showed up a couple of times.
No, it's baby Michael.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, it was baby Joey. Joey Stivic.
Really? They didn't name
Michael
him?
was
the husband.
Was husband. Yeah, baby
Yeah.
Joey. They had baby Joey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
thought-
Meathead was Michael.
That's what he called the.
Yeah,
so
played by
Rob Reiner.
Rob Reiner. Yeah.
And Sally Struthers.
Yep.
Yeah, still got no idea over here.
Rob
Thank
Reiner,
very
you would
much.
know. He
You know Rob
directed The Princess Bride.
Okay. I love
When Harry Met
Princess Bride.
Sally.
Yeah, When Harry Met Sally. Very, very famous, amazing director. Went on to do a lot of
Sleepless in
things.
Seattle.
Yep.
He was in Sleepless in
Okay.
Seattle
He
with
did a
Tom
lot.
Hanks.
He did a lot.
Yeah.
He still does. He's still
Yeah.
does. He's still active.
But that was really,
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah. You ever
anyways.
get a chance? I mean, I used to have,
So-
going back to how old that show is, Columbia House used to have the tapes. And I used to get the tapes from Columbia House, one a month or whatever it was.
All right, guys, how long have we gone into this without
about
talking about Everybody Loves Raymond? Because you've got
50
three
minutes, 51
Italians sitting
minutes.
at a table.
51 minutes. We're
And
not done.
none
We
of
can go
us
as long
brought
as we
up
need to.
Everybody
Not as
Loves
long as we
Raymond.
need to.
I'm
We have to
just
pick up our
saying.
son, but-
Like, come on now. We're dropping the cultural baton over
All right,
here.
let's go to it. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's jump into
God.
Everybody Loves Raymond.
Everybody Loves
because,
Raymond.
yes, we absolutely rewatched
Like, I
that
know
show
all
over
three
and
of us
over again.
rewatched
Yes.
that.
It's true. We did. That is a big one that we missed, and I was rewatching it.
Yep.
There are a couple of episodes in there that are really the one where Frank has to re-get his license.
Yep.
That
is still one of my favorite. That's West. That's not a blind spot. That's West. Like, they're my blind spot. No, Dad, that was West.
and when he comes home and he's like, he passed.
He passed. What do you mean he passed? What is
What
wrong?
kind of
world are
government
we
is
living?
this?
Yes.
Oh, I
passed
love
his
that
driving
episode.
test.
That
He
is one
passed.
that if I just need to laugh,
Yes.
that is one that I will really
Yes,
put on.
that whole interaction when he runs into the funeral base, the procession.
Yeah.
and he just
I still like the sauce episode where Ray is explaining to Deborah where they have to move based on how quickly his mother can get fresh sauce to the house.
The hot
Yes,
zone.
yes, the
It's
hot
the hot
zone.
zone.
Yes.
The hot zone. He
That-
does not
yep.
want to move across the street from them.
So
And that-
we go through this, and I've done this. You and I have done this before. You see, you come from an Italian family, and I come from an Italian family, right? And we're not comparing, but I feel like I come from a more Italian family because my mother is also half Italian. Your dad's not, right? But my father's side is like almost stereotypically Italian. Like I feel like your family is not. They're Italian, obviously. Your mother's side is, but they're not that stereotypical Italian
It's because we're
family.
tempered by our lovely, quiet, mild-mannered Midwestern father.
Well, that's what it is, right? But no, but even just on your mother's side, just take them. Like I see Everybody Loves Raymond. So look at it. If you look at Everybody Loves Raymond, when you look at like the Barones, the mother and father and their family, do you see your family in it, or do you see my family in that? It's okay,
No, I see your family.
right? That's what I'm trying to say.
There are things though. There are things with Marie Barone where I absolutely see my mother.
Sure.
I mean, there are times where I absolutely see my mother, but not
Sorry,
my
Susan,
father.
I
I
see
gotta
more
agree.
I don't just see
Yeah.
my parents. I see a lot of my grandparents in
yes,
there, my father's
my
parents in
grandmother,
there.
my aunts.
I would not say that my grandmother
Yeah.
would not hide one of the ingredients if she's giving you her meatball recipe. She might relabel one so you don't have the exact same recipe
So
as
it's
her.
good, but
it
it's
doesn't come
not
out
the
exactly
same.
No,
Yeah.
they would never have done that.
Yeah,
Yeah, they would
never. They would never
God
have
rest
done
his
that.
soul. My grandfather, he did a lot of wonderful things. Very uneducated man. I don't even got past like second grade or whatever. But he taught himself poetry and won awards and did a lot of great things in his life. He was a wrought iron worker for his entire life. He won awards with that. He has stuff that's in Rome and in all over Boston. His work is his artwork and things like that at the Italian consulate. right? So very accomplished person, but had a very hard time sharing any kind of spotlight or giving praise to anyone else. Like very, very typical. My brother, who also passed away, he at one point was living with my grandparents in their downstairs apartment. My grandparents never moved out of their upstairs apartment. He was there, and he was like, he had time off. He was a soccer coach, so he had free time, and he wanted to learn from my grandfather how to do wrought iron. My grandfather said, "No, you're too old to start doing this," right? Because the reality was he wasn't. He just didn't want the spot because my brother was good at it. Then my grandfather wouldn't be the only one who was good at it. So you have to share the spot. So I looked at my brother at the time. I said, "So Yoda told you were too old to start your Jedi training? Is that essentially what you're telling me?" He's like, "Yeah, basically." Yeah. So it's very typical in that respect. It's like, I'm not going to do. I'm going to, you can't be good because I'm good at this. Praise me. So like that to me was very much like I see the Barones in that.
No.
So I love watching the show, but it's sometimes like, oh, that's my family.
No, but I think that in Italian families, like this idea that you just drop by and you don't have to call and you don't have to make an appointment and everybody just comes in and out and it's
the door's open, the door's always
open.
And it's you. The expectation is you call each other every day. You talk to each other every day.
There's lots of talking.
Yes.
There's lots of communicating.
Yeah,
there's lots of there's lots of some people.
Like, excuse me, my wife is on her goodbye tour.
That's
yes,
right.
exactly. But that's the way that it is, right? I mean, there are these things, and there are positive sides to it. I mean, I think if you even if you look at that show, right? Like they help a lot. They watch the kids. They do a lot of things. They're very supportive in that way. But it's
family. I mean, family's a very strong
and that's
thing in that culture.
That's a finale I will rewatch because they're all there together. Like it's one of those like they're sitting at the kitchen table and the finale and it fades out.
Right.
All of them there together.
Because life continues. The show you've just watched for how many seasons continues on, without us. But it's in that fictional world, it's still continuing the same. There's no change.
This is a question specifically for my sister because how much during the show when you watched it, when you saw the Barones versus Deborah's parents, how much did that feel like Nonna and our side versus like Grandma and the family from the mid? Like,
no, not at all. Because Deborah's parents are like...
Not the fact that they're like super waspy and just like they don't get it and they're not connected, but the fact that like it was just so blatantly very different.
So I felt it more like with Amy's parents. Honestly, like when Amy's parents came in,
that's a better comparison.
I think with Amy's parents because they're more down to earth. They're just so completely
they're
and
from
totally
right?
They're just so completely and totally different.
That's a much better comparison. And I forgot about Amy's parents.
Deborah's parents are snobs.
Yeah.
I mean, Deborah's parents are like very.
They're also detached
but they're
in
also
a way
phony.
that like they weren't.
Thank you, phony. That's the
very
word.
Phony
they're
because
phony.
They make believe they're highfalutin, but yet they're having all these like divorce problems and everything.
Well, they are
else,
highfalutin in the terms of like having money. They have plenty of that, but like I think Amy's parents
they
that
portray like this perfect, and then all of a sudden you find out they're falling apart.
Yeah, and I think I feel like with Amy's parents, it's more of a similar. I could see that more. Like as
that makes much more sense.
You know what I mean? If you see the families come together, but I also don't like I mean, I don't. There weren't a lot of men in our family that were like Frank, right? Like there weren't.
No, thank God.
I mean, nobody.
No, we have him on my side.
No one in our family when you were meeting the in-laws would have said, "Dear God, please get this in-law family the hell away from me." Nobody. It just isn't. Yeah,
that would not have happened.
No, definitely not.
And that's okay. But I think that Marie's a pain, but
force.
She is a force. That is
a loving force
to be reckoned
with.
with.
She's a loving force.
One of those loving forces where you're like, okay, you gotta tone down the love because
so much you're strangling me.
Yeah, it hurts. You gotta tone down the love because it's starting to hurt a little bit.
I mean, and not that I'm not a force because I am, but I don't want to be overbearing like that, and I try to be very aware.
Yes.
And I will, as our son grows up, try to be very aware that I am not like that to our daughter-in-law.
That's why you got me.
Yeah.
That's why you got me, because I'm going to pull you back.
No, but, he's also not going to marry a crazy person, so there's that.
Right.
Whoever he marries someday,
it's
not going to be a crazy person. That's all I know.
She thinks she has control over that. That's fantastic.
I don't.
Great.
I don't.
I'm just over here
but
going,
I just say it. I just say it and I put it out to the universe.
There you go.
And hope that the universe
That it manifests back.
that the universe
perfect.
brings it back to me.
There you go. You know what I liked about Avery Loves Raymond? Always the comedy was based off of Ray Romano's comedy. It was fantastic. It's a family atmosphere, and there's 3 kids, but it's not about the kids. And they say that, right? It's really not about the kids. You had and they're not in every episode, right? Madeline Sweeten's in the most. She's in 206 out of the 210 episodes. Yeah. So she herself missed 4 episodes. The younger boys are only in 142 episodes. So they missed a lot of episodes. Like, where the hell are these kids? That always struck me. You know what I mean? Like, you'd see Marie and Frank, and then the Ray and Deborah, and like, where the hell are the boys? Like, they're off somewhere. They're nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Are they being watched by the slightly older daughter?
Well, no, but I mean, it's hard to deal with, on a practical level, right? It's hard to deal with babies of that age.
Sure, you can't have them all the time because, there's laws and there's,
but not
work
even
laws,
just
things like
that.
But you can't always write everybody into every show because it's only 22 minutes.
But not even just that. Think about Christian. Like, when he does not want to do something, he is not doing it.
Sure.
And, there's no reasoning with a 15-month-old.
Well, they also had to get, for Full House, they had to have a set of twins play one character just because of A, labor laws, B, work time, and you also have to factor in the kids' education.
And
like,
the problem
they have
with
to be doing
Everybody
that.
Loves Raymond is the twins played the twins. So it
yeah.
wasn't like they both played
It wasn't
one
like
boy.
they could split them.
Right, and one worked half the time, one worked the other half of the time. They both had to be there at the only time. So they didn't have, they weren't like another set of twins that looked just like them.
Yeah.
So thinking back to like...
And they were actually their sister.
they're all siblings.
They're all Sweetens. They're all, yeah.
So thinking back to that set, though, how tiny, when you look at some of the sets that we were like talking about and like watching, how tiny is the couch in the Romano household?
Yeah. So
Barone.
Yeah.
How tiny is that little love seat that they all cram onto?
That's covered in plastic, yeah.
No, I'm even just talking about the one in Ray's, Ray's living room. Like, the Barones across the street, the elder Barones always seem to have like bigger furniture that's covered in plastic.
It's always interesting to see how sets move, and like when the TV comes in, you can only see the back of the TV, but then it's just gone because it gets in the way. So you see like the moving set. One show that did that well was The Office. The Office, if you listen to the podcast, you know that they didn't have any flyaways. They made a very specific point to have no flyaway walls, nothing. It was shot just like a documentary. Even though the set was constructed, and they could have moved walls if they wanted to get a better angle, they didn't. They shot it like a documentary person would have to back themselves in a corner and maybe move a plant or shoot through a bad angle, like when they're doing the I think it's season 1 when they're doing the sensitivity training and they have the cards on their head. It's horrible shots because everybody's crammed into this little office, this little boardroom, basically the conference room, and they're trying to get angles and everybody talking.
Isn't that also making it more believable?
Right, that's exactly why they did it. Because if you're doing a real documentary, you can't just move a wall to get a better shot. You have to deal with what the environment you're in. That was done purposely on that show.
But it's only one color.
But it's only one color.
It is only one color. I'm sorry. It's predominantly taupe.
It is not only one color.
It's definitely not.
Taupe.
It is definitely not.
You are taupe.
They're taupe.
I am not. I have olive undertones. Thank you very much.
There you go.
I still have my tan.
So any other shows? We're a little over an hour now, which is fine. We go as long as we want. But what other?
Gilmore Girls.
Oh my
there
God,
you go.
the Gilmore Girls.
Listen, you and I are sitting here. How can we not talk about Gilmore Girls? Come on.
I know. The Gilmore Girls.
Excuse me.
All right, so I'm just going to listen to you two because I've seen some of it. Most of it. I don't think I ever got to the whole series with you. I don't think we ever watched the beginning to end. I watched most of it with you, but you've
watched a lot of it with me. I didn't like it in the beginning, but I do like it now.
Mm-hmm. And why is that?
Because, Samantha,
you were wrong.
I was wrong. Yes. Do you want to tell the audience members what you used to say about the Gilmore Girls?
No, I think you should do it.
You think I should do it?
Yes, I think you should do it.
You used to say, we should watch this show because if Mommy and Daddy die, this is going to be our life.
Wasn't that a happy little thought?
Excuse me. I was so much younger than you. The entirety of my childhood was literally prepping me. Some anxious Annie to my right over here was prepping me if Mom and Dad died. Guess what? I'm in charge of you. My entire childhood.
No, not your entire childhood, first of all. Second of all, Lorelai was 16 years old when Rory was born. I'm 11 years older than you. But the Gilmore Girls is great.
It's a 5-year gap.
TV.
I got math on that one.
Math
was on my side.
You did math.
I did math. Do I not get credit for doing the math?
Is a big,
golf clap.
It's only 5, but
5 is a big difference at that age.
No,
your big difference between 11 and 16.
Yes, 5 is a big age difference, but when you grow up in a household like we did, where Mom and our aunt are 26 years apart, and then both of our uncles are 18 and 16 years apart, respectively.
No, try again.
20 and 18?
They're 18 and 20 older than Mom, and
18
Graham was
and 20,
26.
And Graham was 26. But when you've got that age gap, and then you and I are only looking at 11, it seems a little bit more reasonable.
Yeah, but these things, I mean, that's closed itself in adulthood. But, when I was 18, you were 7. So, when I went to college, you were 7 years old. So it was a little different. But the Gilmore Girls is great TV. We obviously saw a lot of ourselves in those characters and in the relationship. They're funny, the banter, it's well written.
Yep.
It's very, very witty, the humor. And it's quick, so you have to watch it. You have to keep pace with it. I like the other characters. I like the town, like Stars Hollow.
I love Richard and Emily.
Yeah.
And the town itself is basically a character.
Yeah.
Like in so many of these
Exactly.
shows, you know what I mean? Like in The Office, the camera crew is essentially a character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? 'Cause you're talking, the camera will move and it basically will, not speak, but almost speak.
Richard and Emily are great.
Richard and Emily
They're
are great.
very-
And I think some of my favorite episodes are really early on in the beginning when, so Lorelai and Rory have been estranged from Lorelai's parents for an amount of time. And you just sort of try to see this very reserved and stoic, upper class man try to connect with his teenage granddaughter and take a Vogue magazine quiz about, am I a summer, winter, autumn, or spring? Let me find out. And he just does it. And then he goes, well, I found out that I am a winter.
It's very sweet to watch them try to integrate into her life and to watch them be more aware and try to actively, like going to her birthday party and, trying to not do what they did, trying to figure out how did they push Lorelai away and how can we not do that this time? Even though we're helping to support them and pay for her education, how do we not, push them?
Alienate them.
How do we not continue to alienate them and make some changes themselves, which is actually, I think, that they always regretted that they couldn't do with Lorelai. And so they're trying to relive it with Rory,
And
which is
meet
really
them where they're at. And that's really nice. It's great to
well,
watch.
and both of them, because I think, Lorelai has to learn, like, she's got to meet them somewhat where they're at, too.
Yeah.
And, because you can't just expect everybody to change. Nobody is 100% wrong in any of these relationships. And she's a mess, Lorelai, a mess. The poor kid is more stable than her mother.
Yep.
Way more
There's a
stable
lot
than her
of
mother.
parentifying in those early episodes.
Yeah. But, I think it it's TV, and
Yep.
again, it's all that stuff. But,
Well, and again, in an idealized world, like,
yeah, but I think they do a good job. Like, I think they do a really good job portraying family relationships and also giving the characters, like, reasonable growth trajectory. I could have lived without The Year in the Life. It was not my favorite.
no, not really.
I don't, first of all, Richard is dead. If spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't.
I do like when
When
Emily
is that
is
show on? At this
recondoing
point, there's
her
got to be some sort of a 10-year moratorium.
So it's the Year in the Life hasn't been out that long.
Okay.
I mean,
only a couple of years.
5 maybe.
5, 6.
Yeah, but it's that one. Like, I mean, the
2016.
the character
So,
had
5
passed.
years.
Yeah, the character had passed away. Like the
5-year
actor,
moratorium. We haven't
Like
seen it
the
by now. That's the
actor.
problem.
the actor had passed away.
Okay.
Who played Richard? So obviously they
well,
couldn't. What were they going to
yes
do?
and no, they can recast, but sometimes
Yeah.
when an actor passes away, as in like Chadwick Boseman, they don't.
Yeah.
They
Or
cast it. Just,
Well, in the
out of
chemistry,
respect or
like, I
whatever.
mean, I think the chemistry with all of them would have been very hard to recapture with somebody
Yeah.
else. So then they make that part of the growing, like Emily learning how to live her life without this man, and Lorelai and Rory too, and how they change. And I don't know.
Emily recondoing her entire home.
Her husband's just passed away. Her husband of 50-something years has just passed away, and she's Marie Kondoing and saying, this doesn't bring me joy, this doesn't bring me joy. And Lorelai's like, your husband just died. Nothing is going to bring you joy. Stop this.
Stop throwing everything away.
Stop this.
So the show started in 2000. Mm-hmm. It ran for, let's see.
7 seasons.
154 episodes. Yep, from 2000 to 2007. Your main cast was Lauren Graham and Alexis Bledel.
Alexis
Bledel.
Bledel. Also
all
on Mad
154
Men.
episodes. Yeah, there's a few actually that were in. It's funny, more than you thought.
It also has early Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
153 episodes. She's only missing it from one episode. Wow.
Yeah. She was Suki.
Yep.
Yeah, their friendship was great. Rory also has a really good friendship with Lane.
Yeah, her parents are in the Gilmore parents. They're in every episode, which is amazing.
Lane Akiko, what is her
Michael
name?
Gerard, as the guy who plays Michael Gerard, he's in all the episodes.
That's Luke.
No, Scott Patterson.
Scott Patterson's
Yannick Drewsdale plays Michael Gerard.
Oh, yes, Michelle.
Yep.
Michelle.
It's an amazing
Michelle
show.
Gerard.
Yeah, like I said, I've seen some of it. I've seen a lot of it, but I haven't seen all of it. So
it's really, the last season isn't great. There was like there was an issue with the writers and things kind of.
We've had writer strikes for different things.
Yeah,
that always throws you off.
The wheels kind of fell off in the last season.
Yeah.
The first 6 were incredible. The last season, I felt like they were just trying to wrap too many things up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, of course, she's with Logan at the end, and I hate Logan.
Yeah, Logan sucks.
Logan sucks.
Logan sucks.
Logan sucks. End argument.
None of her boyfriends were great. She doesn't have good taste in men.
Yeah.
Well.
Awesome. So, all right. So we're about 110. Wow, an hour and 10. 110 hours. So what I want to go for next is, what is a show that you could see yourself being a part of? Like, if it was a real world, what show that you've rewatched could you say, I can jump into that show and I would live happily, let's say in the Gilmore Girls. I could, not necessarily even as a main character.
The only time Amy will ever move to Florida.
Golden Girls, you want to be one of the girls on the
I don't know. No, I don't know about that. If I had to, if I had to, I could think of a worse way to spend my golden years.
Right.
If I didn't have a husband anymore.
Right.
I could think of worse ways to spend my golden years than the company of very close friends.
Now, see, I could see you also in designing women.
I love designing women. But
too catty for me.
I know. Well, you just have a problem with the cattiness.
I do.
But no, I don't know. I mean, of the ones that we've talked about,
as sarcastic as I can be.
Yeah.
It bugs me.
Well, it hurts you. It hurts your heart.
It does hurt my heart.
Your hat.
It hurt my heart.
Of the shows that we've talked about, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, even if it's one that we haven't talked about, what is a show that you love that you could easily see yourself like living out to, or even just being a part of for a period of time?
Maybe the Gilmore Girls.
Okay.
I feel like I could flow into the Gilmore Girls.
Would you want to be one of the main characters? Or would you like to be a support character, just a friend of Rory's, or whatever?
I don't know.
I want to be Miss Patty and run the dance studio.
You want to be Miss Patty?
I want to be Miss Patty.
Where? Is that Gilmore Girls?
Miss Patty is the Gilmore Girls.
If I were going to be a part of the Gilmore Girls, I would be Miss Patty. I would be completely eccentric, and I would run that dance studio.
Oh, Sally Struthers is on the Gilmore Girls. You know Babette, the neighbor? So she's also Gloria Stivic on All in the Family.
Yes.
Okay.
So she plays Archie's daughter.
I don't know how I would. Probably I'd be like Lorelai's friend.
Yeah.
Somebody who was close to Lorelai and would be like, what the hell, girlfriend? Like, you got to pull it together here. What are you doing?
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Sam, so you're in the same, you two are together, still sisters in the same place, all right?
Maybe, but I'd also if I really wanted to fall into a TV show that I absolutely and completely loved, I would want to be a part of The Closer. But that's just because I love Kira Sedgwick so much.
We haven't talked about that. That is a rewatch.
I love The Closer.
That is a good rewatch. We've watched that a lot.
I don't know. That's tough. That's a hard thing, right? Because you're in a crime show that's just surrounded constantly every episode by death. Somebody's dying brutally every episode. That's a tough. Remember, you gotta live in this world where you're part of the main stories. You're not necessarily the one that's dying, but you're surrounded by this death. It's not like the Golden Girls where you just get to eat cheesecake and go to work and spend time with your girlfriends and have fun adventures. You're going to a show that's constantly someone's dying. You got to figure out who killed who and why. Why did this person do something brutal to this other person?
I'm frightened.
Why?
The Closer.
Yeah, The Closer, Rizzoli, and Isles. I'd rather do that.
Death.
That's what I'm saying.
You talk to me about death.
Yeah, but you can't say that because you watch the murder shows and the cult
I do.
shows.
Did I say I want to be a part of the murder shows and the cult shows?
You definitely don't want to be a part of it, but man, do you watch a lot of it.
I said I wanted to live in the Gilmore Girls. So
that's something that we talk about this all the time. Like, I'll go to sleep and right before bed, I'll watch a comedy or I'll watch an Avengers movie, and she can't watch it.
No superhero movies.
It interferes in her dreams. Mm-hmm. Yet she watches murder shows right before bed, and it doesn't bother her. Okay, I find that weird because the murder shows are talking about things that actually happened, and that would interfere in my brain. Like, there is some lunatic who killed all these people and maybe still out there versus, Spider-Man and Captain America.
I'm right
never
there with
happened.
Marco. No. If it is something scary, I always have to tell Sean, my boyfriend, if it's something scary, if it's something creepy that happened. It has to happen it has to be on during the daytime. It can't be on during the nighttime. It's going to affect my sleep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, it's certainly like any kind of horror movie. That's even like that. Dude, forget it. But
No, I don't like horror movies.
I'm not a big fan either.
You know what? All right. So, what show do you want to live in?
While you were talking, I was thinking about that. I'm really trying to decide because there's a few, but it's hard because something like I could say The Office, right? I lived that world, but I would strangle him. Mm-hmm. Like the fact that they don't tell him to cut the crap on a daily basis, like knock it off.
Yeah.
But then you watch these shows and you see something like him, and you're like,
with one of the camera cords.
yeah, and you're like, this guy would have been fired a long time ago. This is none of it. I know it's a comedy. That's the point. So yeah, I haven't. Like you could say, oh, be in Mad Men, but then like, as cool as it is very not, like on purpose not woke. It's right. It's the 50s. It's a weird time. Even though I'm a guy, like you'd think I'd be like, this is rock, but my sensibility would not play with that very well.
I couldn't be a Mad Men.
Right. Well, no, it's even harder for women.
You don't want to live in the Cobra Kai world?
You would think, based on my martial arts background, but that's just a load of nonsense, and they're constantly fighting, and the bad guy keeps winning, and that drives me crazy. But so it's the same thing like I was saying to you, like, oh, I love Monk, and I could see myself getting along with him even better than his, nurses or whoever was taking care of him. Like, I could put up with his crap better than anybody because half the time I am like that. You can ask my wife. I'm a little neurotic about neatness. And,
okay, but certain things, but not like that.
You're not pathological.
No, definitely not. But I definitely have my, I don't want my son eating spaghetti with his hands because he gets him dirty. And the rest like, you're ridiculous.
But let's carry that thought all the way through. Okay, but then the baby's dirty. Someone has to clean the baby.
And not me.
And if you're tired,
not me.
That adds an extra step. Like, I see that. I get that. That's an extra step, an extra thing you have to do.
Don't encourage it, please.
It's encouraged. It's there.
Hi.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
my job.
So yeah, I haven't quite decided. I thought I had some stuff like that before. Like I would have said different things, but now it's like when you really think it through and you think it out, I don't know what. Well, I'm sure I'll think about it as soon as we stop. Like, I want that. I want to be there. But yeah, no, I can't think of a show that I would want to live in forever, or even for a period of time. Yeah, I guess there's some shows I would live in for a period of time. Certainly some of the superhero shows, but I'd have to be one of the superheroes. I couldn't be just one of the nameless people getting bounced around in the city because the whole place is falling apart. I would definitely have to be one of the superheroes. I'd imagine, since I've been loving superheroes since I was a little kid. So maybe one of the Flash, capes. One of the Arrowverse shows or something like that. No capes, yeah, definitely no capes. They're bad. All right, any other shows you want to talk about? Any other rewatch shows? Because there's obviously new shows that we watch now that were, like Miss Maisel that we love, different shows like that are out. We're going to have to do our, Breaking Bad's another one for me. I can watch Breaking Bad over and over and over again. You wouldn't think it's like I've said before, I said it on the Game of Thrones episode, you watch Breaking Bad, you feel like you have to like clean yourself down with a chicken because it just makes you feel dirty when you watch it, and you're constantly, you're bouncing between this guy is horrible, yet I want him to win. I should not want him to win. You're not supposed to want him to win, but you want him to win. And
it's the anti-hero, man.
Yeah,
it's
so
a great
horrible.
Anti-hero.
He becomes such a horrible, horrible human being that he shouldn't win, but you want
to root for him.
You really do. You really do by the end of it. So that's a show I could watch over and over again. And I don't know why. I love it. It's to me one of the best written shows ever, and one of the best series finales of all time. I could watch that series finale, even though spoiler alert, it's old enough. Too bad. He dies at the end because he's supposed to die, right? He spent the last.
That's kind of the only way they could end it realistically.
Yeah, because he's dying of cancer. He has to die. Like, you knew for 5 seasons, this guy's gonna die.
What do you want him to do?
He has terminal cancer.
Spend the rest of his life in a cage while he has terminal cancer? Just kill him. Finish the cook. Kill him and get it over with.
Right.
Oh, but that's not how it happens.
But it's not how it ends. But the ending, to me, was one of the most satisfying ending of any show because it buttons up so much of the open things.
Isn't it as he's bleeding out, he has to finish?
No. He finishes the people that stole the money from him, the ones that basically he had to go to Vermont and hide out. He goes and kills them all. They have Jesse. He realizes because he's coming back. He's like, screw it, I'm going to come back and just finish up everything and make sure my family's taken care of and do what I have to do because he knows he's going to die or whatever. So he goes back to New Mexico and finds out that the people have had Jesse held captive and been cooking his stuff, using Jesse to cook for them and making money. And they stole the $90 million or whatever from him. So he basically goes back to take care of them, and he does in one of the most satisfying ways, right? He meets up with a guy that he bought the original gun from that he had. He gets him back and buys this massive rifle, basically this automatic machine gun that he mounts inside the Cadillac, inside the trunk of the Cadillac. And he has a remote, the remote alarm trigger on a keychain, and basically he parks it right in front of their clubhouse, and at the right moment he tackles Jesse because he's pretending to fight with him, and he sets it off, and the gun just goes through their whole place and wipes out everybody. He made it rotate. He's really smart. He made it rotate, so it just completely shatters and goes right through the clubhouse and kills everybody. Everybody. Except for Jesse, but he takes a bullet on the way down. He takes a bullet in his side. But there was a cook that already happened. So Jesse gets away. He gets in the El Camino, and that's why they made El Camino. He gets away, which was satisfying in that respect. Finally, after Jesse that poor bastard took a beating every season. Every season, that kid was in traction somehow. Face blood, every season. There wasn't a season he made out without getting beat up for some reason. He gets away, and, he's talking to Lydia, who was, the woman who basically sold his stuff overseas and whatever, and she turned on him. He kills her remotely. She's very a creature of habit, and while she was there with Todd, having her, drink her tea, he slips ricin into the sugar packet, the stevia, because she only drinks stevia. He slips ricin, he switches it out for a stevia packet for her, and she drinks the ricin in her tea, and then, dies later. And so she calls to find out what's going on. He's like, "Hey, Lydia, bet you're feeling pretty bad right about now, huh? That would be the rice that I slipped into your stevia, the crap you always drink." So it's just, and everybody, and then he goes into the place where they were cooking, and he's amongst all the equipment that his, basically was his equipment and stuff like that. And you realize that was his love. That was his one true love, because it was the greatest thing he accomplished in his life. So he dies amongst all the equipment and stuff that he loves. And he does hold on to the thing. You see the bloody hand mark as he falls down and he dies, and then all the cops swarm in. So it's amazing. But the fact that he takes care of his family, right? He uses the money, he gets the money back that he has, and he gives it to the people that basically stole his company from out from under him, right? And he forces them to give his kids the money as if it was from them in a charitable foundation.
I would not want to live in this TV show.
Oh my God! No, you can't live in this TV show. Pretty much everybody dies. 90% of the people die in this, and barely anybody makes it out alive.
Yeah.
Right? But it's just amazing, the threads that go on throughout the seasons, and then they button it all up at the end. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. So that's probably one of my favorite shows of all time that I rewatch when I can.
It's a hard rewatch.
It is a hard rewatch, but I don't know why. I love it. I have to be in the mood for it, but I will get to. The first season was a little rough, but once you hit season 2, it's amazing, amazing show. So that's definitely my recommendation for a rewatch show. All right.
Yeah.
There it is. All right, we did it. Almost an hour and a half.
Wow.
We rewatched it. We did it. We did a great job. So I want to thank both Sam and Amy for coming on again. We're going to stop for a little while and redo for a little while. We're going to do maybe a shorter episode on Hamilton. So look for our Hamilton episode coming up soon. All right. Thank you, ladies.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
All right. Say goodbye to everybody.
Bye, guys. Till next time.
All right,
Bye.
guys. Next time, make sure you look for us online at entertainmentrants.com, social media at entertainment rants. We'd love to hear from you. Feel free to drop us a review so we can read it on the podcast. We have our new merch stores opening up, both on our website. You'll see a Zazzle store and a Shopify store. Our social media is also, we're coming out with our shop stuff on that as well. So look for that, and we'll see you guys next time.
And please, in the comments, comment below other TV shows that only have one color. Let's prove Amy wrong.
Let's do it. Definitely comment on it. We'd love to hear in our social media.
All TV shows have more than one color.
That's why they make color TV. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Keep ranting, everybody.